Okay, so today I'm talking about in role of DC to DC converters. Maybe any application they may be used. So for that we'll be talking. So let us start. Yeah, so we know that this power is available to us in various forms. It may be in DC form, it may be in AC form, and the output or user demand may be in some other form which is available, right? So to process that power, we need some kind of devices. So those devices are basically called power electron converters. So based upon that, what is input, what is output, there are various type of power electron conversion processes. So let's say if we have a fixed DC voltage and we want to get a variable DC, then we need DC to DC conversion. So for that, DC to DC converters are being used, right? Then if we have AC power with us and we need like output either DC, then we need AC to DC, which is basically rectifiers. Then if we have fixed DC, but our loads are like AC in nature, then we need DC to AC conversion, and that is basically inverters. And if from AC to AC, like we have a fixed AC with fixed voltage and frequency, then we need a variable voltage, variable frequency. Then we may in single stage we may go for like AC to AC conversion. So that's cyclo converters and matrix converters. Those are being used. So there are various applications of these power electron converters, like domestic applications, laptops, computers, in fact, mobile chargers, then electric vehicles, then microgrids are there, then are like speed motor drives and attractions, etc. Then our aerospace systems, telecommunication. So at many places, these power electron converters are being used since long. Now, if we take a typical example of laptop power supply system, then we see that we have our AC input at our home outlet. Then obviously our DC, we have a charger which basically converts AC to DC and it charges our battery. So we see that this battery are the ratings of our laptop or this battery laptop charger is typically 65 watt and a 19.5 volt, right? So that is DC. So it means that this charger helps us to charge our battery at 19.5 volts. So that is first stage, like first kind of power electron converter we use here, AC to DC rectifier. Then within that laptop, this battery is now that source to this laptop now is DC, but within the laptop there are multiple accessories or multiple uh, devices which needs different kind of power, like let's say lightings are there, so or display is there. If that needs AC, then we need to convert this AC to this DC to AC. Our processors are there, so that they need very low kind of DC power, low voltage DC power, so that DC we need to again lower it. So we need a buck conversion. We need to lower this DC voltage. Then some other components, if they need high voltage DC, then we need to boost up that voltage. So we can see that within a single device, different kind of power electron converters are being used. So if we go for another examples like DC microgrid, so we see that microgrid means like we have different. It's a local kind of thing, right? We have different local resources, local loads, and local storage, right? So these resources which are available to us, they maybe of different nature, right? It may be, let's say, solar PV. So the good thing with solar is that it produces DC voltage itself, right? But the level, depending upon the how many number of solar panels are there and what is the ratings, current rating, voltage rating, power rating, etc. So the final outcome of that solar installation, that may be of some voltage. But if this solar PV resource is to be connected to some DC bus, common DC bus, then we need to measure the voltage level, right? So here we need a DC to DC converter. Here we need a DC to DC converter. Then let's say a fuel cell, so that also gives us DC. that case, again, to match the level with the output of fuel cell to a DC bus, then we need again a DC to DC converter. If let's say the local resource is from wind power, then wind turbine generates AC voltage, then we need AC to DC converter. So here rectifiers are required, right? And like so, and if this DC microgrid, the power from this DC microgrid is to be fed to, let's say, utility grid, then we need DC to AC conversion, right? If some storage is there, then again to match the voltage level of batteries with the DC bus, again DC to DC bidirectional converter is being used, because when surplus power is there, then we need to charge the battery if lacking of power is there, like that. And similarly loads, if DC loads are connected, then to measure the level of float, again we may need convert. So this is like same things is explained in this way. So this is DC bus, and this DC bus is connected to different power resources and loads and battery, etc., with different kind of power conversion processes, right? So here we can see the importance of this. The now important thing here is that we need to anyhow we need to develop some kind of control methodologies such that management can be done properly, right? So and the whatever resources or loads etc. are connected to this DC bus, so they should be regulated in such a way that DC bus voltage is maintained at a reference value, right? So similarly, AC microgrid is there. Now the things are like that. Earlier, this common bus was having a DC reference voltage. Now in this case, it will be having AC reference voltage, and the resources, etc., they remain same. But now because the common reference is of AC nature, so the conversion techniques like becomes different. If for solar PV is there, then we need DC to AC conversion. Then wind turbine, we need AC to AC now, not DC. Then if this is like battery, then we need DC to AC or AC to DC bidirectional converters, like that. Loads are there, so we need to measure the voltage level of that converters. So some AC to AC conversion, or maybe some two process AC to DC, then DC to AC, some kind of things. And if let's say the from same uh, bus DC load is to be filled, then we need some kind of rectifiers, right? So that's like AC microgrid, again using many converters. And in hybrid microgrid, so this is separate, let's say AC microgrid, this is DC microgrid. And in case if there is power lacking or power surplus, then the mutual exchange of power is also possible. So in this we need some AC to DC to AC to DC to SE, like interlinking converter. So here we see that there are converters, Palatine converters, and in fact DC to DC converter is also a building block of these microgrids. So in this case, when DC microgrid, this DC to DC converter is coming to picture, then how to design a controller for that, how to model, all those things are necessary from research point of view also, and from fundamental point of view as well. So that we'll see. So we start with the fundamentals of DC to DC converter in very short. So we know that we are give we are giving a fixed DC voltage, and our load demands certain kind of other variable DC voltage. So that is the aim of DC to DC converter, right? Certain kind of component should be there which helps us to convert this DC voltage, fixed DC voltage or input DC voltage, to the desired output voltage. So the one fundamental way is that we use some kind of voltage divider circuit, that's like one resistance that is fixed and other variable resistance we use, and we vary this resistance until unless this desired voltage is achieved here, right? So let's say 100 voltage is the input voltage, and this is 5 ohm resistance across which we want the 50 volt output volt. Okay, so in order to do this, so there will be 10 ampere current out of this resistance. So I need to connect a resistance and vary in such a way that this 100 volt input and this output voltage is 50 volts. So my 50 volts should be dropped across. So in this case, this resistance value will be 5 ohm only, same, right? So now problem here is that this 5 ohm resistance additionally I have connected, and because 10 ampere they are in series, so this 10 ampere current is flowing through entire circuit. So 10 into 1000, that is 10 into 100, that is 1000 watt power input is there. But my load is basically consuming 500 watt power only, 10 into 50. But where the remaining power is going on? So remaining power is being wasted here, That is mere, let's say, losses, pure losses. So efficiency here is 50%. Another thing is, next time if I want 60 volt, let's say my load demand 60 volt, then I need to vary this, this knob of resistance or this resistance, so that this becomes 60 volt, and this resistance is set to a value in such a way that 40 voltage drop is there. So I every time I need to set this manually, right? So in order to sort out this, this linear regulated power supply, LMPSV, so linear mode regulated power supply. So those are the power supplies which are basically being used in our labs, BTech labs. We use the bulky one. So here the thing is that here some reference voltage is given to us. It is given, and based upon this reference voltage, automatically the circuits adjust. So here what is used, a transistor is being used, and that is being operated in linear region or active region, right? So when it is it is being operated in active region, so depending upon the reference voltage, so this reference voltage is there, and if this reference voltage we change by changing the knob, then what does happen, that it senses that what is the present voltage and what is new reference voltage. So accordingly it will change the base current, and when this base current is being changed, then this voltage drop will be um, varying, right? Because this IB changing, so BCE will be getting changed, and accordingly this voltage will be regulated. So it's not that preciously we have to select the voltage level. So that problem is solved, that reference voltage we have changed, and that will be regulated. But the again problem here is that this is IC and this is IE. So we know that IB is very negligible in comparison to this collector and ammeter current. So this is more or less same current. So if 10 ampere current is flowing through this, and it same 10 ampere current is flowing through this, near to 10 ampere current is flowing through this. So again, this 500 watt power is being lost. The automatic control is possible here, but this power loss is again there. So in order to, because this is a transistor, and due to this power loss, there will be heat generation, and due to this heat, if this is not properly adjusted, then device may get damaged. So what we need a bulky heat sink, right? Or some kind fan of kind of a fan, or some cooling arrangements we need. So due to that, this power supply becomes bulky. Due to that, this power supply becomes bulky. So we may see in our labs also, backside there is large heat sink on that metal kind of transistors are mounted, right? So so the disadvantage in both the cases is that poor efficiency, large heat sink is required. So due to that, the power supply becomes heavy and bulky. And the another thing is that we can lower the voltage, like it's 100 voltage, then we can make it like 50, 80, 90, like that, right? And so it is suitable due to poor efficiency. It is suitable to low power applications only, not for high power applications. So what is alternative? Okay. So like this, how this converters or DC to DC converters come into picture. So this is the input voltage 100 volt, and here this is the load where we want 50 volt. So let's say arrange a switch in this way, right? So when switch is at one position, then at this point, let's say I'm drawing this waveform VST, right? So when switch is at one position, then the voltage across this will be 100 volt only, and when switch is at position 2, then the voltage here will be 0, right? So for certain time, I keep this switch to be one position, then this is the waveform, and then position 2, right? And I at certain frequency, I repeat the same process. So this is my output voltage, but this is this kind of voltage. So this is not the DC what I want, right? when we do the Fourier analysis of this waveform, then what we find that this waveform has the DC component which is equal to Vs equal to d into Vg, where d is duty cycle. So that is T on upon chi. So where T is the this position, this period of operation for one cycle, and T on is the period for which the switch is kept on. So this duty cycle into Vg, so that is the DC component. That's what we want. But apart from the DC component, there are other harmonics as well present in this, right? So to filter out these harmonics, a LC filter is introduced here. LC filter is introduced here, and after introducing it, it is observed that this filter out loads of harmonics, and only few harmonics remains there. Higher order harmonics remains there, and like this kind of, if we select these L and C very properly, then this kind of waveforms, like with very small ripple or harmonics, this waveform, so that is acceptable one, right? So that way we find that this uh, the voltage across the load, that is DC in nature. Now, what is the different components L and C? So in ideal case, L and C both are uh, lossless, right? Ideal case, they are lossless. So there will be no power loss here. And what about this switch? In switch, because previously when we were using transistor in active region, then due to active region there was power loss. But when we operate this, when switch is on, it means it is in saturation region. It is saturation region, right? And when it is off, it is in cutoff region. So in both the region, ideally power loss is zero. Ideally power loss is zero, and practically power loss is very low, right? And if we talk about L and C practically, so L and C is also having very low ESR. We'll talk about that later in the talk. So that if we consider practical L and C, then that is also very small. So efficiency may be somewhere 85%, 90% or above that, right? So here we see that the power loss is very small, right? Or ideally you can say it is to be zero, right? So that process was affected, and this, because these switches are now operating in saturation and cutoff mode, so it is called switched mode power supply, SMPS, earlier linear mode power supply. So, and further, if the frequency of this operation is increased, then we see that the value of L and C that gets reduced. So the if components L and C gets reduced, then the size of our power supply also becomes reduced. So the advantage here, high efficiency, because L and C are lossless, and as switching frequency increases, their size also get reduced, and because very small power loss is there, so not much rise in temperature, so so little efforts for cooling is required. So that's where this DC to DC converters come into picture. And if we arrange this L, C, and the switches in different phases, then it is possible to lift up the voltage as well, right? So this DC to DC converters basically has these components, magnetics and capacitors. They are being used as filters, then resistors are being used as load, and then in these semiconductor devices, they are being used in switch mode. So depending upon how the assembly happens, there are various converters: buck converter, boost converter, buck boost converter. So this buck converter, boost converter, buck boost converter, they are second order converter, right? The order is defined depending upon the how many energy storing elements they have. So L and C. So in all three configurations, they are two numbers, one inductor, one conductor. They are second order converters. Then we have Cuck converter, Sapik converter, Zeta converter, and other Luo, Superlift, Luo, like that, right? So this like Cuck, Zeta, and Sapik, they have two inductor and two capacitors. So they are fourth order converters. Okay. So all converters have different analysis. So we can see that in buck converter, we all know in buck converter, basically the output voltage varies with the duty cycle, and output voltage is always less than the input voltage. In boost converter, ideally, with the duty cycle, this output voltage keeps on increasing, and as duty cycle reaches 1, ideally it should reach to infinite, but that never happens. We'll see it later. And converter, by the duty cycle, like if it operates as buck greater than 0.5, then it operates as boost converter, right? And then there are cuck converters, Sapik Zeta, they also act as buck boost converter, right? So there might be questions that why we go for cuck converter and Sapik converter, why not only buck boost converter or second order converter is being used. So that depends upon the applications, right? Basically here in these cases, this power is transferred through capacitor, so this becomes a bit less tricky, right? And other thing is that in these cases, you see that this switch is directly connected to input end. So when switch is off, then it is disconnected from the supply, right? So there is discontinuity if we are drawing power from some circuit. But here this inductor is directly connected to converter to the supply. So that is continuity of power from the input side. So it improves the power factor, etc. So those things depends upon applications. Okay, so for a DC to DC converter, what we desire, what are the desired features that a DC to DC converter should have? So there is quite possibility that because we see in this DC power, which is its input, it is constant DC source is shown here. Basically, this DC power is obtained from somewhere, right? Some from maybe AC source or maybe some your PV source or some other source, right? So due to some parameter change or due to some environmental change, that input voltage may get changed, right? So if there is any change in this input source, then our output voltage, because this is connected to output is connected to, if we talk about DC microgrid, so that is connected to DC bus, right? So that output should not change, right? So if there is any variation in the input, then output voltage should be regulated to the reference value. Similarly, if there is any change in the load, then also output voltage should be regulated. So if there is any change in the input voltage or input voltage varies, then our output voltage should remain constant. That is the feature DC to DC converter or SMPS should have. So it should have good line regulation. Similarly, if there is change in load, then that should be output voltage should remain constant. So that is called good load regulation, right? And if there is any change, then obviously if there is see in our lives also it happens many times due to many so these are called disturbances, basically input disturbance or load disturbance. So in lives also there are many disturbances in our lives being human being. So one person is called the patient if he quickly resumes his position, right? So similarly, if there is any change in the system, then we say that how far this converter is able to regulate or to come back to its reference value. So that is the better one, right? So here also good transient, we say that it should have good transient response. If any disturbance is there, then as soon as it comes to its desired value or its reference value, that is good. So that is desired feature. And one should remain not human only, like this is expected from converter also, that he should remain stable in all operating conditions, right, in the limit, prescribed limit. So that is called stability. So it makes sure it should make sure of the stability as well. All right. So I will be discussing in this talk. I divided it into three parts: design, modeling, and control. So let's say how much we could cover. So if we talk about the design, then ideal converter, we all know it is given in books, and that ideal converter, I'm taking an example of buck converter here. Okay, so this is simply a DC to DC converter, buck converter. So ideal analysis, we all know that output voltage, what is ideal duty cycle, inductor and capacitor value, how to choose those value, but we'll see in the further discussion that when we want to design a good control and uh, we go for modeling, then these non-idealities play important role. So it's better to include these non-idealities as far as possible, because it affects our modeling and it affects our controller design as well. So, well, what is the different parasitics are there? Like in capacitor, we have ESR. In inductor, we have ESR is equivalent series resistance. So basically, whatever losses are there, so we represent it with a certain kind of resistance. So that is ESR. That ESR is defined there. And when switch is on, then it will also have certain kind of conduction losses. So that is defined with this RSW. And similarly, when this diode is on, it will have some forward voltage. Then it will with the current, it will have some diode forward resistance as well. So when we'll take, so this is for buck converter, but for other converters also we have done this work, and many are doing. So that can be applicable for other converter as well. So okay, so when we take these non-idealities into consideration, then we do analysis in same way. When switch is on, when switch is off, we write the equations for inductor voltage and capacitor current and output voltage. Then we do the steady state analysis by making this volts and volt second or yeah, volt second balance and capacity charge balance equations. Then we get these relationships we get, and just by rearranging the terms, what we get this output voltage V output, that is not just D into VG, it is having certain other components also, or we may say that this output voltage is function of non-idealities as well. So here we see that this term is greater than 1. So this output voltage is ideally D into Vg. So, but in practical case, that will be less than the D into Vg, right? Due to these non-idealities. So, if I'm going to use, let's say I want to go or run this converter in open loop, and I choose just duty cycle from here D equal to V upon Bg, and if same duty cycle I'm going to apply to my buck converter or any converter, that definitely the output voltage which I will get, that will be count by this formula, and that will be less than what I expected, right? So in order to, if I want that my output voltage should be same, then I should calculate duty cycle using this. So we did that, and from that, this duty cycle comes out to be this one. And this expression shows that duty cycle D in this case should be more, and that's fine too. That should be. So duty cycle in non-ideal case, that should be greater than the D ideal. Why it is required? Because due to these non-idealities, what happens? There are voltage drop across these uh, non-ideal elements, right? So the what actual voltage reaches to the load, that is lesser, right? So in order to meet or in order to feed that voltage drop, we need to keep the switch on for little more time. It means duty cycle should be little more. And this characteristic shows the same thing, that if for different level of output voltage, duty cycle in non-ideal case should be slightly more, right? It should be slightly more. Okay, so and if input voltage and load resistance is varying, then it further varies. So this is explained with this characteristic. Similarly, if we do analysis for inductor design and capacitor design, then also we find so this is the formula in ideal case, but in practical case also we see that to keep the inductor ripple voltage in limit, sorry, inductor and out inductor current in the limit, uh, the value of inductor to be used should be a little more than what is given by the ideal formulas. Okay, And so that's the inductor design. Now, when we come to capacitor design, so there is like this ESR of the capacitor that plays a big role, right? So it should be taken into consideration for proper modeling of converter and controller design. So this ESR, if this RC it increases, then basically what happens, ideally this when this capacitor is there, then whatever voltage across capacitor, that will be the voltage across load. But when this RC is there, then the voltage across this load is the voltage across this capacitor plus this IC into RC, right? So if this RC is more, then this voltage is being added here. So you can see that in these waveforms as well, this is capacitor current, this is capacitor current. So yeah, this component VRC, this component, this one, right? This one. This is due to presence of RC. Now this RC or the voltage across the RC will be added into this VC. This voltage will be added into VC. So VC is this one. VC is this one, right? This one, this one. So the third one is the resultant. So due to which what happens, the ripple voltage increases. Ripple voltage increases. So if RC is not there, it's better. But if RC is there, ripple voltage increases. Now ripple increases. So to mitigate that ripple, C should be high. C should be high. So that's we get that how much C should be high and how C and RC are related. So we derive this formula and like putting value of RC, we can get the new value of C, right? So this ESR plays a role. We will see in modeling as well, right? So these are the parameters value used for simulation and experimental purpose. Input voltage is 20, output voltage is 12. So for buck converter, ideally I should have a duty cycle of 0.6, but we have taken the non-idealities into consideration. Then when we are considering these non-idealities, then we found that the duty cycle in open loop, it should be 0.6415. It should be 0.6415. And the inductor also should be more. It should be not 448 only. It should be 490 microhenry. Similarly, this capacitor value also not 25 microfarad. It should be 50 microfarad, like that. Okay, so this is simulation or experimental result. So here what we see that if I use the for a practical converter, I'm including all non-idealities. If I'm using 0.6 duty cycle, then output voltage is, if I'm taking 0.6 duty cycle, then output voltage is just 11.2 volt only. But if I'm changing duty cycle to the, by calculated by the new formula, then output voltage reaches to 12 volts. So that is in open loop, right? Similarly, to see the effect of ESR, when this ESR value is not there, then we see that, okay, so we designed this capacitor to have a ripple voltage of 1%. So output voltage is 12 volt, right? So 1% means 120 millivolt or 0.12 volt. So when RC is 0, then we see that ESR is, sorry, output voltage ripple is just 60 millivolt or 0.06 volt. When RC is 0.1 ohm, then this output voltage is increasing. Output voltage ripple is increasing. Then further we are increasing RC, then it is further increasing, right? And if we are increasing it further, then the output voltage ripple is increasing further. It means with the increasing in RC, output voltage ripple is increasing. So we should choose the RC or ESR of the capacitor properly. We should choose it properly, right? Same thing is seen in uh, experimental results as well. Okay, so let's see now the boost converter. How does the non-idealities affects the boost converter? Okay, so in boost converter, this is inductor, and the RL is basically the resistance or ESR of this inductor. Okay, so how does the behavior change? So ideally we all know that the output voltage, ideally we know that this output voltage of the boost converter is Vg upon 1 minus d. So if duty cycle reaches to 1, then output voltage should be tending to infinite, right? But what happens when ESR of the this L or the resistance of the inductor is being considered, right? So obviously that will be there in practical converter. So we have to consider that there is no way, right? If we are designing it properly. So we are considering this RL, and then we are, let's say, doing analysis, then this output voltage comes out to be Vg upon 1 minus d. So this term remains there, and apart from there, there will be one term that is 1 plus RL upon 1 minus d square R. So this R is resistance and RL is this ESR of inductor, right? So if we little more solve this, then it becomes Bg, then 1 minus d into R upon 1 minus d square R plus RL. Okay, so this is output voltage. Now in this formula, if you put d equal to 1, then what is output voltage? That is 0. Hmm? So what does it show? That if duty cycle is 1, then output voltage will become 0 in practical boost converter. But in ideal analysis, it should be infinite. So both things are together different, right? And in fact, it's not like that you can keep on increasing duty cycle and it will provide you any voltage you want. Not like that, right? So we see that here, this curve, we see that as the ideally when RL is 0, then this is the approach. It is going to infinite. But when this RL is increasing, like it's a 1% of the R, 2%, 5%, 10% like that, then this peak is also reducing, and at duty cycle 1, this output voltage is becoming 0, right? It is becoming 0. So here also we see that this proper analysis of converter is very much required. So why it is happening? So basically when d equal to 1 is there, then this switch is permanently connected here. So whatever energy is supplied by this voltage source, so that energy keeps that energy uh, keep on floating here only, and that is controlled by this resistance R. No energy is transferred to load, so obviously voltage will be 0 only, right? So that's the reason. So again here it is shown that yeah, proper analysis or constitution of ESR is important. So let's see how these things affects the mathematical modeling, or what is a mathematical modeling. Okay, so when any physical system is there, so for that physical system, if you want to design some controller, then before let's say implementing it on actual system, right? We do its trials on some prototypes or like that, right? So what we do in that, we take not converter only, any physical system. We take that physical system, and that physical system have different parts. So for those different parts, we try to analyze its nature, right? And that nature we try for individual component, that the nature of individual component we try to modulate or model that mathematically, right? Then we assemble the nature of all components and we get a unified model, right? So what we say that, okay, whatever model I quote, so that is the model of that system. It means the model which I got and that physical system, they are more or less similar, right? As much as close is there, then I say my model is more perfect, right? Now I got a mathematical model. Now I can play with this mathematical model in any way. I cannot play with the physical system. If corona trial is there, we cannot play with humans, and directly, right? So they need many trials, maybe for vaccination, I mean any system, right? So in that way, on that model, mathematically we implement some controller. Once our controller is found and we are satisfactory to implement that controller on the model, then we develop a prototype, small prototype, and of same system on which we want to actually implement the controller. Then if that controller is succeed on that model, prototype hardware model, then we get confident that okay, same thing may will work on our scaled system as well. So that's why we go for modeling. So there are like various techniques for mathematical modeling of converters. So we'll be talking about these two: state space averaging technique and average switch model approach. There are other switching flow graph, energy factor, and many more bond graph, etc. So this state space averaging technique is the popular one. So it needs few steps. Let's see one by one. So in case of DC to DC converter, we say that either it can operate in CCM or DCM. So in continuous current conduction mode, the current through the inductor is always that is not zero, always positive. But in DCM, it falls zero for a certain time, like that. So there may be three or more than three modes. So let's focus on continuous current conduction mode. So in this state space averaging technique, when switch is on, then our circuit becomes linear. Then we write a linear state space model equations. When switch is off, again our circuit is linear, right? Actually, these converters are switch systems. They are switch systems or non-linear systems. But when switch is on, it is linear. When switch is off, it is linear. But total model is non-linear, right? So this is when switch is off, then we go to the model. Now we do averaging when like switch is on for certain time, d into t, switch is off for 1 minus d into t, then we do averaging, and so just a minute, please. Okay, so we do averaging, and when we do averaging, then we get a nonlinear average large signal model. Now we do linearization of this nonlinear model by introducing small signal perturbations around the DC operating point. So let's say we know that our converter will be mostly working around some steady state model, steady state operating point, right? So around that we introduce some perturbations, right? And obviously these perturbations are very small in compared to the original DC values. Then we'll put back to our average model. Then there will be like some terms which are more than first order or nonlinear terms. Then we will neglect that in order to get a linearized model, right? Then we get this unified linear model. Then it has both DC terms and perturbation terms. So we'll separate out this unified model, and we'll get two different models. One is the steady state model, right? So this provides us the DC value of state variables and output voltage, and other is the small signal model, AC model. So in that case, we get this small signal state space model of the system, converter system, right? Then well this is in time domain, right? So there are well equipped controller design techniques which works well with the transfer function. So we take Laplace transform, and we get these two equations in Laplace domain or S domain, right? Then we may get from these two equations various transfer functions. We may get different transfer functions. So depending upon that, what is the input and what is the order of the system, there are various times. Let's say normally, as I said earlier, that input disturbances are considered as input voltage and load current, right? So that is the input voltage. And Okay, so that is the our input variables, u1 and u2, right? And this x, that is the state vector. That state vector depends uh, that state vector depends upon the order of converter, right? If it is second order, then this is the second order state vector, like inductor current and capacitor voltage. If it is fourth order, then it's like two capacitor voltage to capacitor current, like that. So we get like various transfer functions. If let's say it's second order, so this inductor current with respect to input voltage, current, and duty cycle. Similarly, this y has output variables, the output voltage, etc. So we get, depending upon what kind of controller we are being used, what kind of transfer function we need, we can get all kind of transfer functions with the help of these equations. Okay, so let's come to the practical circuit. So this is a buck converter circuit with including non-idealities. So when switch is on, we have written all equations, all three equations, right? Then when switch is off, we have again written these equations. Then just by rearranging that and applying the state space averaging techniques, we get the transfer functions. So I go just these three transfer function: output voltage with respect to other variations, right? Now, so that is the state space averaging technique, right? We could get the other transfer function like inductor current with respect to duty cycle and any other, right? So now we go to the other modeling technique, that is average switch model technique. Okay. So in this technique, in previous technique, what we did when switch was on, then we wrote the state space model or state space equations. Uh, yes, or like the voltage across the inductor and current across the capacitor. Then after that, we did averaging and all those things, right? Now, in this state, in this switch model technique, what we do, uh, rather than writing the equations across inductor and capacitors, what we do, we get the averaged model of switch and diode, right? Averaged model of switch and diode. Let's see how. So when switch is on, there will be obviously certain equations for the voltage across the switch, certain equations for the current across the switch. Similarly, for the diode, switch voltage and switch current when this is on and this is off. So those equations are simple to write. Just by observing, we can write these equations, right? So after that, what we do, we average these equations. We average these equations. Means we take the average switch voltage and average switch current, average diode voltage, diode current, like that, in same way as we did in SSA. Now, after getting the average switch model and average diode model, what we do, we replace those switch model and diode model here, right? So we replace that switch because switching device is the nonlinear element in this converter circuits. So that we have replaced now with this average switch model, and we have replaced with this average diode model. Okay. So now this entire circuit, this becomes linear. This is now linear, and by simply writing the KCL and KVL equations, we can get the various transfer functions now, right? So it's the steady state model. In steady state model, we remove the effect of inductor and capacitor. All right. So steady state model we can get from here, and this is the small signal model, right? So by converting this L, that is basically in S domain, we convert by S into L, and like this C is there, that we can write by its equivalent impedance in S domain 1 upon SC. Then we simply write like equations KVL and KCL, and then we get the just by solving the different algebraic equations, we get various transfer functions. So that is the another way of doing modeling, right? And we get these transfer functions. So the transfer functions obtained are same only, but just the method is different, right? So now let's see how these non-ideal it is affects. Okay, so this is input voltage, output voltage, and different non-ideal elements, parasitic elements are there, right? In fact, diode voltage drop is also there. So including that, when we do steady state, we do steady state analysis, then we find that in ideal case, the inductor current should be 1.09 ampere and output voltage should be 12 volt, and this gain factor should be 0.75. But in non-ideal case, inductor current is 1.05 ampere, output voltage is 11.9 volt, and the gain factor is 0.725. Okay. So these are the transfer functions. By putting these values we get. So in ideal case, this is the transfer function. In non-ideal case, this is the transfer function. So what we see, okay, a numerator has here only constant terms, but here numerator has a 0, right? Similarly, the denominator has two poles only, but locations are different. Okay. So when we plot their step response and body diagram, then we will see that their frequency response and time response, right? Both are different in ideal case and non-ideal case, right? So let's say in ideal case, the phase margin is 34 degree, but in non-ideal case, phase margin is 55.4 degree, right? Similarly, when we get, this is the like output voltage to duty cycle transfer function, right? So this transfer function is basically used in a controller design, right? So here also we see that this 0 is coming here, and here is there is no 0, only constant terms. So this 0 is basically occurring here due to the effect of ESR of capacitor, that RC. Due to RC, this 0 is coming. Now, how does it affect? Let's see. So when we plot the frequency domain response and time domain response, then this blue one is the frequency response for ideal case, and the green one is for non-ideal case. Okay. So for the blue one, when I see that phase margin, this is for open loop yet. We have not discussed closed loop so far. So this phase margin is 4.85 degree when I consider the ideal case. When I consider the non-ideal case, then phase margin is 26 degree. And when we see the corresponding time response, then what we see here, the blue one is for ideal case, green one is for non-ideal case. So because this phase margin is phase margin in frequency response, that is linked with the overshoot in the time response, right? So less the phase margin, more the overshoot. More the phase margin, lesser the overshoot. So we see here that in non-ideal case, phase margin is more. Why it is more? So it is more. So the overshoot is less. And why it is less? Because due to this non-ideal elements, there is a damping. Damping is being provided. Due to this, these oscillation gets damped. All right. So less oscillations are there. Phase margin is more, but still there are oscillations. Other thing observed here is that this is not reaching to steady state. This is not reaching to steady state. So that we will cover in controller design as well. But what I want to conclude from this discussion, that my practical converter will have all these non-idealities. Yes. Now, that will not be ideal one, right? It means my practical converter, when it has all these non-idealities, it means practical converter is providing me a phase margin of 26 degree. Huh? So, okay, when we will be discussing controller, then we see that controller, let's say I am designing a controller which needs, let's say, phase margin, and I define that it should have a phase margin of 70 degree. Roughly, it should have, for converter, thumb rule is that it should be greater than 50 degree or somewhere, right? More than 50 degree, like that. So let's say I define to be 70 degree. So if I rely on the modeling with non-ideal converter, hmm, then what a controller design, what he thinks that this is having only just 5 degree. So my controller should be designed in such a way that it should provide a 65 degree of phase margin, right? But actually our system is having 26 degree. So when I design it properly, then I know that already my converter is providing 26 degree. Then I should be able to provide it somewhere 45 degree, right? So I'll get a actual physical insight when I develop a accurate model, right? So that is very much required from control design point of view. Let's say now go to the last topic, that is the controller design. So why this controller design is needed? Huh? So as I said earlier, that this input voltage that may be fed by some source, so that may vary. Similarly, this load may vary, yet our output voltage should be regulated, right? So a reference is given to us, that may be the DC voltage reference. So our this converter should behave in such a way that that reference voltage gets matched, right? So let's say let's say this is for example 20 volt input voltage and output voltage is 10 volt. So duty cycle in this case it should be somewhere 0.5. It should be uh, 0.5, right? Now due to some reason let's say okay, so due to some reason, let's say it's working fine, and then due to some reason, this voltage drops to, let's say, 18 volt. Hmm? So 18 volt into 0.5, this output voltage dropped to 9 volt. Now our reference voltage was 10 volt only. Hmm? This drops to 9 volt. But because we have designed a controller and it should remain to 10 volt, right? So now how this controller will help? So reference is 10 volt, this is 9 volt. So there will be an error of plus 1 volt. Hmm? Now this controller is there. So this controller was providing a some control signal, but because this plus 1 will be there in the previous value, so now this control signal will be increasing. This control signal value will be increasing. So how does it function? I'll tell. So due to this, the pulses, bit pulses will be increasing. It means duty cycle will be increasing. Now, if duty cycle is increasing, and this is 18 volts, so let's say duty cycle increase by this controller design in such a way that this increased duty cycle, so obviously it will be more than 0.5. So that into 18, that again becomes 10 volt. In same way, if let's say it becomes 22 volt, then 22 into 0.5, that is 11 volt. Now 11 volt will be here. It is compared with 10. Now minus 1 voltage will be error. Now this error is feed here. So whatever control signal were earlier, so minus 1 will be added into that. It means this will be reduced. If this is reduced, it means D will be reduced. So if duty cycle is reduced, so there it will be less than 0.5, and that 12 22 into 0.5 or less, some value less than 0.5, that will again make it to 10 volt. So that way it will control. It means this controller should be taken care of all these things, right? So this may be any controller. So what we do, we take the actual reference volt, we take the actual voltage, we compare with the reference, error is generated, that error is processed in certain kind of controller. We have taken first controller to be PI controller. Then this control signal control voltage is generated. Now this control voltage is compared with the short-tooth waveform. So how does it work? So it is a short-tooth waveform, right? And this is short-tooth waveform, fixed frequency, short-tooth waveform. So this frequency is fixed, right? Uh, and as I said earlier, that depending upon the switching frequency, these components are designed, right? More the frequency, lesser is the size. So based upon the whatever the switching frequency want to keep, so that will be fixed here, right? T equal to 1 upon f. Now this is the control signal. Now this signal will keep on varying, right? Depending upon the changes in load or input voltage or changing upon depending upon the disturbances. So this each are control signal. Now in this block, this is called PWM, pulse width modulator block. In this block, both are compared. Now, depending upon when VC is greater than VSW, not VS, yeah, VSW, then the output will be 1, otherwise it will be 0. So when this is greater, then there will be output like that, right? Like that. Huh? So this pulse is available here. Now this pulse is fed to the switch. So that's the whole process is of controller design, right? So we formulate this to be in block diagram to understand. So this part, we have already developed a model for that, right? And for this part, if we see from here, this is VC, this is VHW, right? Like, okay. So this is peak value is VHW, this is T, right? And this is D into T, this is VC. So there are two triangles, one is this one and other is this one, right? So if I write equations, then this VHW upon T equal to VC upon DT. So from here I get this D upon VCS, that is 1 upon VHW. So that is the mathematical model for this block, and this is a controller that I need to decide which controller and how to tune its parameters. So if I formulate these things in block diagram format, then this is the converter. Output voltage is sensed from here. It is compared with the reference. Error is given to a controller. Now controller provides me a control signal. That control signals I give to a PWM modulator, which gives me duty cycles, and that duty cycles is fed to converter, right? So this relations or this mathematical model between duty cycle and output voltage, we have already obtained or already known how to know this model, how duty cycle to be obtained from the VC, that is already known. Now only thing remaining is that how to design this PI controller. Okay, so that is to be decided, that we'll see now. Okay. Now here as I said that this is power circuit, this is power circuit, and when through sensors I'm sensing this voltage, right? Then this part, that is our control circuit. That part is control circuit. So when I am generating pulses from here and I'm feeding to the switch, then basically I am interacting with the our power circuit and control circuit. Similarly, when we are sensing, then also we are interacting with power circuit and control circuit. So these sensors are already having isolations, right? Similarly, when these pulses are fed to the our switches, which may be MOSFET, IGBT, then there should be some isolation. Another thing, these all controller aspects, they are implemented in some low voltage device, maybe DSP, DSpace, right? Now this need to be isolated and this need to be amplified. So we need amplifier and isolation circuit. So this is one of the circuit which were being used. Like this is the signal which we are getting from some controller. Then it is being isolated using optocoupler, and snubber circuit is also used here, right? So like this is our pulse generated from the gates, that is, let's say 5 volt, but your MOSFET actually needs 12 volt. Then we have drawn some waveform, intermediate waveform. So this is the finally amplified waveform, and because we have used optocoupler as well, so that provides the isolation. So these were used earlier. Nowadays, P in this direct different driver ICs are available, so that just we apply the input voltage and it will isolate and amplify and will give the pulses. So that is being used in hardware circuit. In simulation, we normally connect it directly, right? So okay, so now let's go how to design the controller. PI controller, first controller I would like to discuss. So normally problems comes that okay, people say many times, okay, we do it manually and tune manually and trial and error, or maybe some tuning methods like that. So the one of the method is that how to do it analytically. So this is the transfer function which we have already obtained. Now this is the PI controller which we want to design. Now how to tune this KP and KI properly based upon the our performance specification. So let's say I want that for a compensated system, my phase margin should be 5 and gain margin should be 8. All right. So I write a characteristic equation after compensation, all right, like this. Now I just put S equal to j omega in entire equation, and I simplify this. So after simplification, I get this equation, and from this equation, I subtract the real and imaginary part. Then I rearrange the terms, and I solve for Kp and Ki, for Kp and Ki. Now phi and A both are known to us. That is the our phase margin and gain margin which I need. The only thing unknown is here omega, right? Omega, right? So what I do here now, by varying the omega, I take Kp and Ki like that, and by varying omega, if I vary the value of omega, then what will happen? Get I'll get the value of Kp and Ki for 1 omega. So for that, I plot for different value of omega, I'll plot a locus. I'll plot a locus like that, right? Now that is for first phase margin. Similarly, I will plot second locus for desired gain margin on different value of omega. Let's say that is obtained in this way. So it is corresponding to phase margin. It is, let's say, corresponding to gain margin. So there will be some intersection point. So within that intersection point, if I choose any combination of Kp and Ki, so that will guarantee me that whatever phase margin and gain margin I have chosen, that controller or those value of Kp and Ki will give me definitely at least that gain margin or phase margin. It may be more, but it will not be less. So in that way, we can, by drawing these locus, boundary locuses, we can tune Kp and Ki, right? So that's the one way. So let's take the practical example. So this is the buck converter circuit. Dr. Rajiv, what is the time limit? Is there any time for question answers as well?
Yeah, we have 10-15 minutes left.
Total?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll finish this topic, then we can have some questions. Fine. Okay, so let's take the some value like design. So let's say this is the input range. I have taken that my input may vary between 16 to 24. Output voltage should be regulated to 12 volt. Then load may vary between 11 to 22 ohm. And capacitors, switching frequency I have chosen kilohertz. So, uh, so this is after putting the value, this is my open GS. This is the nature of the frequency response. Then there are also that is value, that is steady state value. Okay, so thing is that steady state error should be eliminated, right? But let us try to understand why it is happening from frequency response. So obviously these oscillations are happening because phase margin is very poor. And why this error is there, applying the step change to like DC gain in low frequency region, DC gain or constant gain in low frequency region. So in order to ensure that that there should be steady state error should be zero, then this frequency response of compensated system that should have a slope of minus 20 dB per decade at low frequency, right? At low frequency, that should have a slope of minus 20. So I should change the characteristics of this uncompensated system in such a way that it should have a minus 20 dB slope. Other thing is that it should improve the phase margin. So I know that if I connect a integrator that is inbuilt in a PI controller, then I will be able to add this minus 20 dB slope, right? So that's why I choose PI controller. Okay. So then my compensated system will be you know having like, or it will not be having any steady state error. So okay, so that is now my system. So I use the same I use the okay. What about the gain margin? Gain margin is infinity here, or very high gain margin, because this phase plot is not crossing the minus 180-degree line. So if it does not cross, then and there will be no phase crossover frequency, so there will not be any issue with the gain margin. Okay, so I write this equation for Kp and Ki, and let's say I want a phase margin of 75 degree. So I plotted, and because I do not want to like I do not have any concern for gain margin. I want to improve only phase margin. So I selected phase margin to be 75 degree. Then I will be having only single plot for phase margin, right? And within that stability locus stability region, if I choose any value of Kp and Ki, that will ensure me that my phase margin will be greater than 75 degrees. So I choose an let's say I pick this value where Kp is 0.02, Ki is 20, or it could be somewhere here as well, right? So now when I have put these values, then what I see that this red one is the frequency response or Bode plot of compensated system. So as I desired that my compensated system should have this initial slope to be minus 20 per decade. So that is there, right? And now phase margin, that is also greater than 75 degree, right? So now I can compare the mm, step response as well. So this step response shows me that yes, that is reaching to unity now, and these oscillations also dimmed out. But one problem has occurred, and we need to understand that fundamentally why it occurred. Earlier, this system was getting stable very early, right? But now, sorry, it was settling time was very less, but now settling time is more. Settling time is more. So why it is happening so? So let's go back to our frequency response. Okay. So here we were seeing that in this case, the crossover frequency was 2.23 kilohertz. But for the compensated system, the crossover frequency has been reduced to somewhere 55 hertz, right? So crossover frequency has reduced. That's why this system, because frequency has reduced, so time has increased. So that's why this system has become sluggish, or settling time has increased. But there is no way. If we are using single PI controller, then this will happen. And how we can ensure it? Again, from this plot, right? So if you closely observe here, this is 10 raised to power 0, it means 1 kilohertz. This is the point 1 kilohertz, and that was the point where 2.23 kilohertz was there, and this is the 10 kilohertz. Our switching frequency is somewhere 20 kilohertz, not somewhere, it is 20 kilohertz, right? So what you need, that in PI controller, so PI controller transfer function is Kp plus Ki upon S, or I can write it this way. So this will provide me positive angle, which is less than 90 degree. And this will provide me divided by same positive angle, which is 90 degree. So if I take the net, then that will be negative only, right? Because this is in numerator, it will provide less than 90 degree. Then this is denominator is positive, but if it go up, then the total will be negative only. So this PI controller always introduce lag in the system. It will introduce a negative phase in the system, right? So my total system or compensated system phase margin should improve. So that is possible when, because these two will be added now. So if I go somewhere here in this region where phase margin is more, so here if I add some negative phase, then only my net phase will be 75 degree or somewhat, right? So I need to come this side, and this side, this frequency is very less, right? So that's the issue with single PI controller. That's the issue with single PI controller. And that's the reason here steady state error has been eliminated, overshoot has been decreased, but this time has increased, settling time has increased. So there are way to eliminate that also, but time is over. Okay, so we'll see results also. So with this KP and KI, we have implemented in simulation and hardware as well. So here we see that if there is any variation in the input voltage, so till here it was 16 volt, output was 12 volt. So at this time, when step variation in input voltage is given, then obviously when input voltage is increased, output will increase for certain time, then it will settle due to the controller design. But yes, it will take some time. It will take some time. So that is our different loads, full load, then half load. Then we have seen the by varying the load resistance, when there is step change in the load, so load is increased, then voltage goes down for certain time, then again it's track back and it is being regulated. So it's when input voltage is set to minimum, when input voltage is set to maximum, that time. Okay, so that way output voltage is being regulated. Then we change the reference voltage as well. So when we are changing reference voltage from 12 to 15, then we see that output voltage is being regulated here again, right? So yeah, but as I said, I told you the reason, the settling time, the settling time is bit more. So the way to eliminate that is, because we will not be discussing those techniques, but the fundamental way is that uh, uh, a controller should be designed in such a way that yeah, a controller should be designed in such a way that some part of controller should take care of this DC gain, means a integrator should be included to improve this profile. Then this phase margin, some portion of the that controller should provide a positive phase, in that desired crossover frequency region, then both things could be achieved together. And very like in short, I tell that each PI lead controller that we last time we that is there in one of my paper. So that is proposed there, that PI lead controller. So in that controller, basically uh, that things is taken care. There are two parts. One is the PI parts. So that PI parts takes care of the low frequency gain. Then there is lead part. There is lead part, this lead part. So things are given in paper, you can read. So that lead part takes care of the desired crossover frequency, So in that case, we achieve both. So for the same model, which we were discussing for PI, uh, if we see closely here, this is different analysis here. See, so in this case, we got the phase margin 75 degree and crossover frequency also high. The reason being the controller which was designed, this green one. So that controller was in such a way that here it was providing the it was adding one integrator, but the phase boost also it was giving some positive phase, it was giving, not like the single PI controller. So both things could be achieved, right? And these things could be done by using two loop control as well, because here this PI lead controller works fine up to certain frequency. Then after that, the results gets deteriorate, right? Then again, it can be improved by using the multi-loop PI controller. So that is, you must have read somewhere, inner current control loop and output voltage control loop. So that way also the profile can be improved. So that's all from my side. Now, if there are any questions, so that I could not discuss because that is in bit detail. So these are few papers where this works has been published, so you can see. So thank you. I think I should stop here. So
Thank you, Doctor.
yes, sir.
Just give me a moment, please. Yeah, now I would like to invite my colleague, Dr. Subbu, to give vote of thanks and take the questions from the participant.
Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. And also thank you to our guest speaker. So thank you, sir, for your enlightening lecture on the topic. So some of the questions that were asked by the participants are, first question is that for in a grid integrated PV system with MPPT, the load resistance is unknown. How to calculate the inductor value of DC-DC converter?
Sir, can you repeat the question, please?
So in a grid integrated system, PV system, with MPPT as working there, the load resistance is unknown. Okay, since grid is there, so how to calculate the inductor value of such DC-DC converter?
Correct. So in that case, we know the, let's say, output voltage we know, and how much current is being drawn, that we know, right? Or because voltage is fixed, so voltage we know, but current may vary, right? So that current value we know that in this range current may vary, right? So voltage is there and current is varying in certain range. So in that case, we know that the what is the maximum or minimum value of load resistance. So that way we can model it. We can take these values.
Okay, sir. The second question is for buck converter, duty cycle, that is sawtooth waveform, is given to the comparator, as you have shown. Is any other form of wave can be selected for that?
No, for comparator, we will take sawtooth waveform only. Control signal may be anything depending upon the how variations in load voltage is there. But for the reference, we take sawtooth waveform.
Okay. So again, how to means again there is a question how state space averaging technique is giving us us linear model and average switching model giving means the state space average technique is giving non-linear model and average switching model giving linear, as in both we are doing averaging.
Both are giving the linear model only after the like introducing perturbations and doing linearization. Both are giving linear model only. Before perturbation, introducing perturbation and doing linearization, it was non-linear, right? So like I think why this confusion came because in the second method, what we did, we have taken the voltage and current across switch and voltage switch and diode. Then we have done averaging over there, and after that averaging, we have introduced perturbation and then done linearization. So those linear models of switch and diode were obtained, and after linearizing only they were inserted back into the original circuit, right? So that's why that whole circuit I call to be linear, but before that linearization has been done for switch current and switch voltage, switch current, diode voltage, diode current individually.
So thank you, sir, for your very informative talk. So with this, I like to give the vote of thanks to our third keynote speaker of the day, Dr. Manmohan Garg. He is currently working as an assistant professor in
Thank
the
you.
electrical engineering department